Oklahoma City also gets 2 #1 draft picks and a couple of swaps for 2 other years. A week after Paul George leaves town, Westbrook goes to reunited with James Harden. Paul started his NBA career in Oklahoma with the hurricane-transplanted Hornets. Adrian Wojnarowski, of course, first with the news of this trade here with us on SportsCenter to fill us in on what else is happening. Woj, from first making Russ available to making a deal seems to have happened really quickly. How did it all come together?
Very much by design, John. Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook, they did not want this to linger, and they were aggressive this week in searching out trade partners. Houston, Miami, Detroit showed some interest, but it was really a Houston-Miami derby. And, earlier today, Houston, Oklahoma City came to terms on an agreement, and this was done almost as soon as this auction started.
If OKC didn't want to strand Westbrook in the middle of what's going to be a rebuilding project because they have all these #1 picks now, it seems the same might go for a 34-year-old Paul. Is there more to come here with CP3?
I believe so, John. I think the Thunder are going to talk with Chris Paul's agent, Leon Rose, try to get a sense of what he might like to happen here. 3 years, $124 million left on Paul's contract. It's 1 year less than Westbrook's 4 for $171. That goes back to Houston. But, they're trying here. They're headed toward a rebuild. They still have a team this year, that's competitive in Oklahoma City. The market's going to be a very short list of teams, probably beginning and ending with Miami, to see if there's a deal that could possibly work with the Heat, see if they're willing to take on that money and whether they might want a draft pick with it to take on that kind of money. But they were interested in Westbrook. Houston beat them out for him. Now I think there could be a conversation to be had between Oklahoma City and Miami. Otherwise, Oklahoma City would start the season with Chris Paul. He actually played there once before when New Orleans, after Hurricane Katrina, played their season there. He's familiar with the market. But at this point in his career, Chris Paul wants to win. He wants to be with a contender. He doesn't have that with the Thunder.
Somebody call Pat Riley. Woj, the offseason reshaping of the NBA continues. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, this pair pretty fascinating on a number of levels over the past 5 seasons. They rank 1, 2 in the NBA in a number of key categories. Harden first in points. Westbrook tops in the league in assists and usage rate. 2 guys who love the ball in their hands, and now to a guy who loves the mic and the camera, and who played some college basketball, Stephen A. Smith.
Candidate was the MVP last season, not the one that just passed. We know what he brings to the table, and the relationship with him and Chris Paul wasn't ideal at the end. In the end, you had 2 individuals that didn't seem to want to play with one another. Chris Paul clearly wanted out, even though he didn't want to say that publicly. It was time for him to move on, and James Harden wasn't going to have a problem with that at all. Having said all of that, James Harden reuniting with Russell Westbrook makes them incredibly formidable. We understand that Russell Westbrook hasn't looked the way that we're accustomed to seeing him look. But he's fresh off of 3 consecutive years of averaging a triple-double, even though last year he shot an horrific 65% from the free throw line, according to his standards, and has shot 29% from three-point range over the last 2 years. He's still an unstoppable force one-on-one. He can't be guarded. He's bigger, he's stronger, and faster than Chris Paul, not to mention a little bit younger as well. And so you take that into consideration, along with the fact that his relationship with James Harden is pretty close because they're former teammates in Oklahoma City, and then you consider what they still have in tow, whether it's a guy I have no problem with Houston making it whatsoever. I think from a talent perspective, it puts them right back in title contention picture. My only question mark is whether or not Mike D'Antoni can coach them on that level. We know he can win regular season games. We know he can win a couple of playoff series. But can he coach them in the manner that they need to be coached to get them over the hump? That's the lone question mark about the Houston Rockets after this deal. I see no other question marks to think of.
Well, you took us right to our second question. How do they coexist on the court, particularly when both of them usually like to be the #1 option, the guy who has the ball most of the time?
Well, this is James Harden's team, and James Harden is a better perimeter shooter than Russell Westbrook. So you take that into consideration along with the 6 years of excellence that James Harden has registered for the Houston Rockets, and there is no question that Russell Westbrook is coming to James Harden's team. He's not coming to take over the Houston Rockets, but that's not going to be a challenge for him because he doesn't have a problem with it because they're boys. They're pretty tight. They used to play with one another. It was Russell Westbrook's team in OKC, in his eyes, not not Kevin Durant, but him. But in Houston, it's clearly James Harden. So really this comes down to Mike D'Antoni. His system predicts that, it predicates you being able to hit perimeter shots, making sure you push the ball up the floor at all time, even willing to sacrifice some defensive possessions from time to time. But there's a different ownership in place in Tillman Fertitta. He's not going to tolerate much. That's why Chris Paul is gone, because this man has expectations. He wants to win the championship, and he knew that getting this move was going to get them closer to that. In the case of Chris Paul, that wasn't going to happen. That's why he's gone. Russell Westbrook is there. They're back in title contention, but I don't think there's any question about their offense, and I don't think there's any question about their talent. The question now is whether Mike D'Antoni, who's a pretty damn good coach, can get them over the hump, which is something he wasn't able to do in Phoenix, New York, L.A., and thus far Houston. We'll see if he can pull it off.
Stephen A. Smith, look forward to more commentary from you on the TV Friday. Thanks for joining us.
You know it.
Can a brother get a dynamic duo? Yes, apparently. We got a month full of them. June 15th, Anthony Davis traded to the Lakers to join forces with LeBron James. Those two ranked second and third all-time player efficiency rating. Official starter free agency, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, they team up, commit to the Nets. Durant will likely miss the entire season with an Achilles injury. They suffered in the finals, but they're a twosome. July 5th, Kawhi Leonard committed to the Clippers. OKC traded Paul George as LA became the second team in NBA history to add multiple 25-point-per-game scores in a single offseason. That started this. Russell Westbrook now reunited with Harden in Houston. Those two played in OKC for 3 seasons before Harden was traded to Houston. They went to the finals once as well. So the Rockets' odds of winning the NBA title improve from 10-1 before the trade. It's now 7-1. That's from our friends. Who am I kidding? They're Kenny's friends in the Caesars Sportsbook.
All good, buddies.
You're wired in Vegas.
Play the hard ways on the come out.
Balance of power resides in the Western Conference. 5 of the 7 title favorites on the west side of things. Lakers have the best odds right now. Clips close behind there in L.A.
As seen on ESPN, the only Major League game on Thursday night. By the way, Jake Marisnick appealing that suspension. Not seen out on the field, though. Astros send Framber Valdez the mound, a 15.63 ERA. Brother, they played a few seasons with each other in Oklahoma City. Houston's the spot now. Westbrook coming over in a trade for Chris Paul and a whole bunch of draft choices. Thunder better increase the scouting budget because they got a lot of draft choices over the next 7 seasons. They got like some 5th graders they need to look at, including their own draft picks, plus the ones they got in both the Paul and the George trade. And this, they're going to have 15 first-rounders. Keep in mind, some of those picks might not convey into the year listed due to projection. Royce Young covers the Oklahoma City Thunder for us, and now he'll be covering less because there's fewer people there. What were the things that led to getting rid of Russell Westbrook? That's a monumental deal.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an awkward timeline of events, Kenny, that led to the Thunder trading their franchise player, the guy that has spent 11 years in Oklahoma City. And it really started back with Paul George's trade request. Obviously, everything changed at that moment. The timetable for the Thunder, the outlook for the upcoming season, and really Russell Westbrook's perspective as well. And one thing that sources have told me, Kenny, is that when Paul George put that request in with the Thunder, Russell Westbrook didn't try to change his mind. He was basically understanding of the situation and understood that essentially that meant that gave him a ticket out as well, because in some ways this was a mutual agreement. The Thunder wanted to accommodate Westbrook, get him to the team that he wanted to play for, which was very definitively the Houston Rockets. Westbrook wanted to pair back up with former teammate James Harden, and the Thunder wanted to get him there, and they understood that with Paul George gone and the outlook for the team in a different place, it was time to start the rebuild, and Russell Westbrook just really didn't fit that type of timeline for this Thunder team. So it became very obvious for both sides. They were motivated to get it done, and both the Thunder and Russell Westbrook and his representation made it happen. You
mentioned the 11 years, the longest tenured active player with the same team. Remember, he was selected actually by the Sonics, then moved with the team when they moved for that next season. What will be his legacy in Oklahoma City?
Well, he's obviously the first guy that's going to have a statue out in front of the arena. He's not the first guy to have his jersey retired. Nick Collison got that honor last season, but Westbrook will certainly have that, Kenny. He is the Thunder in so many ways, and in a lot of ways he also represents this era. The highs, the lows, the drama, the injuries, everything that the Thunder kind of went through, the ups and downs and everything that they've experienced, it kind of embodies Russell Westbrook, right? I mean, the guy is one of the most dramatic, emotional, passionate, intense intense players, and this decade of Thunder basketball was one of the most intense periods that we've seen in the NBA with everything that happened around them. So he will be remembered very fondly by Thunder fans. He's an all-time player, an all-time great, and while it's an awkward ending for Russell Westbrook to go to the Houston Rockets and rejoin James Harden, it's also one that I think that fans will look back on and understand that it was necessary for both sides to part ways.
All right, Royce, thanks for joining us late. For your perspective, I'm sure it's not the first time you'll be asked these questions.
Tennis now from over there. Serena Williams in the semifinals of the ladies singles. Barbara Streisova on the opposite side of the net. Williams looking to become the oldest woman to reach a Grand Slam final. She'll be 37 years old, 291 days when the final is played. And well, she looks pretty impolite to talk about women's age, really. I'm a cad. Here she is, playing well, controlling the point, just moving poor Streisova around and around, and finally puts away the forehand winner. Fans enjoy fine shot making at Wimbledon. Serena, break point,